All right, so let's talk about how we can create forms where we can configure each one of these questions, right? So each one of the questions will have a different type of form. So for instance, the true and false question will have maybe a checkbox. All of them will have things that are similar to one another, like the input fields for the title, input fields for the description, maybe the number of points, right? So all those things might be common to all of them, but then a few of them will have something that are specific to that particular question. So let's get started on creating really very simple forms, and so first we'll take a look at some of the easier ones. A button group. A button group allows you to have just a couple of small number of selections that you can then choose from either one, right? From one of them, and they're mutually exclusive typically, right? If you select one, it unselects all the other ones, right? So it might render something like this at the top, right? Where you have several grouped together buttons that if you can select one or not the other. So we could use this, for instance, if it's a small set of choices, right? Like for instance, we have 4 types of questions, right? And so this could be useful, right? So you can choose multiple choice, fill in the blanks, essay, or true and false. So let's take a look at how to build this real quick. We are going to be using the React Native Elements button group element that it takes as argument. It can take as argument either an array of strings, right? Or if you want to make them more sophisticated, be something more than just a string, right? They can be actual subcomponents themselves, right? And then you can fully style them any which way you want. So let's first take a look at using something fairly simple, just a button group component. So let's maybe create a separate elements here. So we'll call this question type chooser, button chooser. Button group chooser. And let's import React from here. And we'll also need a button group from React Native Elements. There we go. Okay. And here we're going to create what do we call it? Question type button group, and we're going to extend the component. And component will be here. And here we're going to have the render and the return. And the return, as a return, we're going to be rendering. We're going to have we're going to render like this. We're going to first declare a constant array of strings. Okay, there they are. These are all the choices: multiple choice, fill in the blanks, essay, and true and false. And notice that here you can style whether you want a new line, break the line. If you don't say if it's too long, it'll just wrap on its own, right? But if you want to wrap it exactly where you want, you can add a new line there. Once we have the list of buttons, we can then just return. We can return a button group. Oh wait, I think this return needs to be in the render, right here. There we go. And in here we want the button group. Okay, and the button group is taking as an argument the buttons, the array here, right? So these buttons. So this might be a better name for this might be question types. Okay, and now we can bind the button group to the state of the component. so that it can remember which one did you actually choose. But just for now, let's remove those. Okay, because we just want to render them by what it renders by default for now. Let's see. So we have the question type, and what we're going to do here is that we're going to export the button, the question type button group choose. Choose. I called it choose. Really? Chooser. Is that what I call the file too? So let's just change that. Chooser. All right. Now that we have that, we can maybe load that from our app, and we can import that. So import the question type chooser from let's see, from where? From elements and then question type button group chooser. Let's keep the naming the same. And then we can render it here right above the exam. And let's see how it renders. Okay, notice that it renders at the top, right? The 4 buttons, and by default they have no idea who's selected, right? We can't yet actually select something. Notice that it highlights for a second, but it doesn't really know if it's really the one that should be stayed selected. To handle that, we need to use the standard way of maintaining state in a component. So we'll just use the out-of-the-box state management that comes with React. What we can do is in the chooser, right? We can bind to an update index function that we need to bind it. We need to declare it first. Let's declare function on the component. Probably we'll have to first add the constructor. So we'll need props. We'll need super props, right? So this is a standard React state management. And we can initialize the state to be let's see, selected question type. Okay, index. So to begin, it'll be maybe 0. Right. So the selected element that question by default is 0, the first one. Okay, and then we can use that to we can use that to feed the button selected index attribute, right? We can feed that and say that this comes from this dot state dot selected question index, right? Which right now is 0, and this seems to have failed. Let me restart it. Yeah, so by default, it's going to grab that 0 and say, okay, the first one is selected, the 0th element is selected. But we can certainly update it by adding an event handler, right? That if it's pressed, right, it'll notify the event handler which index was pressed, and then it'll set the state saying that is now the currently selected element. Okay, it's rendering. All right, notice that the first one is highlighted. Okay, and if I try to highlight any other one, notice that the first one is still highlighted because there's no way that I can change that state unless I put an event handler, right? So let's create an event handler that would allow me to set it. So to do that, we're going to use the onPress. So onPress. We could maybe just make sure that it is indeed pressing, selected, right? So let's we'll need to bring alert here. Alert is from This is one of the standard elements in the React Native library. Oh, notice that what it's doing is it's calling it immediately, and that's not really what we want. We want to say on press, here's the function that I want you to call. Yes? Here's the function I want you to call when the event occurs. Okay, so now, so it's being clicked on. All right, so what we actually want to do is call a function. So let's see, we can create a function here called select question type. It'll be a function. And it'll be the new index. It'll come in as the new question type index. Right? And what we'll do is that we're just going to store it in the state. We're going to say this dot set state. And it'll be the selected question index will have the new question type index. All right. Now for this to work, we'll need to bind this. So this will be this dot select question type is equal to this dot select question type dot bind this. Okay. So if we go back, let's see. It's selected, but it's not. Why is this not working? Oh, probably because I still have it bound to alert, right? What we actually mean to do is to call this dot select question type, right? That's the function we want to call instead, right? All right, now it's working. Right? Notice that it's indeed choosing a different one every time we select, okay? So certainly there's one way you could go about selecting which type you want to go. But if you want this to be a little more scalable, right? If you have many types of questions, right? Perhaps a better option might be maybe a drop-down or a scrollable wheel or something like that, right? So let's take a look at doing it some other way.